Greetings and welcome to episode number 15 of You Had Me at Halo, where we talk about everything past, present, and future of one of gaming's most storied franchises. This week, we have some meaty information that came to light from an Ask 343 session. We also had some breaking news with a Bethesda roundtable where Phil Spencer talked about text sharing with 343. So we'll spend a couple minutes on that. And then we will look at this dilemma of balancing modern and classic fan preferences. First, I want to introduce you to today's Spartan team. First off, we have a special guest, and our first guest here with You Had Me at Halo, and this Spartan has been well known as a positive voice in the community. He's been with us for over 6 years, and even when he doesn't agree with everything, he does a good job considering all perspectives. And so we look forward to kind of seeing his perspectives for some of these contentious topics. So allow me to introduce Spartan Late Night Gaming. How's it going?
I'm a Spartan.
You are a Spartan.
I've been called a lot of names. Spartan is definitely the first.
There we are. Yes, Spartan Late Night Gaming, or Spartan, aka Mr. Turos, right?
Yes,
I got that right. All right, cool.
Does Halo have multiple languages in the future? Like, I know they have Spanish and English, obviously.
And Sangheili, yeah.
What?
Those
I
are,
thought, wasn't
those
there
are
like
different.
a primary language in Reach that was like
Yeah, don't
Dutch.
they speak Hungarian in Reach?
Yeah, Hungarian.
yeah.
That's what it was.
That's what the ODST trailer was as well, right? The commercial.
Oh, the live action? Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Anyways, let's.
Okay, that's interesting.
I do not know that answer. Next up, we have Spartan Mike, aka Kage Maru. What's going on, Mike?
Hey, what's going on, everyone?
Next up, we have Spartan Ursul, aka Soul Blazer. How's it going, man?
Hey, it's going pretty good. A lot of stuff to cover today, so pretty excited.
Yep, probably more than we will have time for, but that's a good problem for today. Next up, Spartan Jesse, aka Don Cabeza. How's it going, Jesse?
I am doing very well. I hope everyone else is doing well as well.
That was so professional. That's like the most professional you've been all week. Next up,
Going on?
There we go. That's what I was waiting for.
Next up, we have Spartan Daniel, aka Nadian. How's it going, Daniel?
Pretty awesome. Ready to talk about this huge info dump we got recently.
Nice. All right. So before we get going, I do want to give a chance to just talk to our guests, ask a couple questions. I'm guessing that most people that are listening to our show have heard of late night gaming, but just I think what might be interesting is just taking a couple of minutes and letting everybody know, what was it that got you into the whole Halo podcasting about 6 years ago?
I haven't been a podcaster, I think, ever. So that's a very
Or
interesting.
YouTuber, yeah.
Are my videos kind of like that?
No.
We'll call it
YouTuber is
YouTuber.
probably a better way of putting it.
Halo content creation.
Exactly,
See?
content
There
creator.
we go.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you,
Broad
everybody.
and vague enough. So my channel actually, it was just like a hobby thing that I started while I was in high school. And I uploaded whatever I wanted. I actually just liked editing. I was in a drama class and liked making videos for drama and just like the process of editing them. And so I started to upload some of them to YouTube and make them, gaming related. And just one Halo video took off unusually well. And so I kept doing that because I have a lot of opinions about Halo and a lot of things to say about all of it and how cool I think it is. And before I knew it, it was too late. And I was the Halo YouTube.
There you go. So it's been 6 years. So I'm curious. Obviously, we've now been doing our thing here for 6 months, and one of the things we always talk about is after time, like what are what's going to be the new topic when you talk about one game. So how's that worked out for you over all this time?
Like in terms of running out of ideas, or
running out of ideas, or keeping that going.
Well, I rarely ever run out of ideas. The problem is I need to figure out how to make the weird, stupidly specific opinion I have interesting. I could probably make a 20-minute video about my favorite reload animation. The issue is, how do I make that interesting for you?
Wow, that actually is very interesting.
I am blessed and cursed with being very opinionated.
Well, that's
the Halo community.
Yeah. Well,
dude, I can tell you what my favorite door opening sound for a Forerunner environment is. I've got a lot of opinions about a Halo.
Well, I can't wait to get into these questions. So, all right. Well, we got to ask you too, so we know what perspective you're coming from. Tell us about your favorite Halo and why is it your favorite Halo?
Subjectively or objectively?
Subjectively.
Yeah, there's no such thing as objectively favorite.
Yeah, there's not. Yeah, is there really an objective right answer to this?
I say
kind of intrigued now.
Both. How about that? We need to learn what this difference is.
Subjectively, personally, if I were to ignore all flaws and just be like, man, I just really like the game. Halo 3.
Okay.
Nice.
But then if I were to say, when I say objectively, I mean more so like, what game do I think best represents the franchise? Probably, I mean, it's the boring answer, Combat Evolved.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the boring answer, personally. Mike agrees with you.
It's just like the most, I guess, like raw, in that I think the story is shallow enough that it's great for split screen, because you can just talk and you won't miss anything.
Yeah.
Right.
The levels are big enough and there's enough vehicle shenanigans going on that, again, co-op, like, there's a lot of room for fooling around there. And it's just like, every level is a new thing. Every level introduces you to a new weapon. The first level is you getting the assault rifle and pistol. Second level, you get the sniper. Like, there's just like that linear progression of upgrades that makes every level feel like a totally different experience.
And super memorable, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it feels like Halo CE, whether it was intentional or not, and you have to assume most of it was intentional, even if they've admitted the pistol was a mistake. It feels like a masterclass in game design in a way that there's very few games that you can go back and that came out 20 years ago and play it today, just an upres, and say this still plays as well as anything else that's coming out today, or better than most things coming out today, because of the way it was balanced.
Well,
So
I think there are a lot of games that do hold up, but it's more like you almost have to appreciate it within the context of
there was no template back then.
Yeah, like when you go back and you play Combat Evolved, you can't be like, Modern Warfare has way better graphics than this. You have to almost, like, before anyone starts, like, they made this that you're going to play in less than a year. It started out as an RTS game. They also had to get it running on a console.
Yeah.
Also, it's one of the first-person shooters to use heavy outdoor environments and stuff and really focus on combined arms, like switching from vehicle to infantry.
Yeah, that's always interesting. Like when you go back and listen to that, and it makes me kind of wonder that they had to be so focused. Like they couldn't waste time on what do they call that in development, where you start feature creeping, right? Like when you just start adding stuff and breaking the balance, and then you have to, they kept it very simple with the amount of weapons they had, and everything just seemed almost perfectly in balance.
Oh yeah. Like the, people talk about, there's like that footage of that Halo build that had wildlife in it, like the blind wolves.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of a thing with all of Bungie's Halos, is they all have stuff that they've had a cut, but for the better.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing you mentioned that I feel like a lot of people ignore because it really depends on how you played the games. Was that you mentioned how Halo CE was just goofy enough to just have just fun co-op, right?
Yeah.
Like especially split screen. When you compare like the more modern games, I remember I played Halo Reach co-op, and we were doing the usual Halo shenanigans, having fun, but it ended up kind of like cheapening the story almost in a way.
Right.
It's a very serious, very like, you know, everyone's dying story, but we're here beating each other up every other mission.
There's that like sorry, let me try that sentence again. The mishmash of conflicting tones where everyone's yelling at each other in Xbox party chat.
Yeah.
And Cat just gets shot by a rifle.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, Mr. Turas, we appreciate you sharing that with us. I think we could probably do a whole show on that. But
definitely.
I do.
Oh, God, yeah.
It sounds like you could do the whole show on just the reloads, but we're going to try to get some of this week's news. And I'm really interested to see kind of how your opinion is going to, mix in here with everybody else's. And just to kind of set the table, our group is, we do have a wide range of ages. For me, CE was my favorite, and I was kind of a young adult at that time that came out. So now I'm more of a middle-aged adult or whatever. And we also have people in the group that are pretty young, and so throughout all of our tastes, we have people that obviously I'm more CE, Mike's more Halo 3, but we have Soul here that played co-op on Halo 5, and that's the one that stuck out to him. Or was it you, Daniel, that liked? Yeah, so we have people that like Halo 4 and 5, which is unique because usually when you think of people that are influencers within the Halo community, it's all everything that isn't Bungie is crap, right?
No.
So
I mean, I was gonna say I love the story of Halo 4, not so much Halo 5, but I was there from Macworld 99, so
yeah. So everybody kind of has their unique perspectives, which I kind of like that dynamic because it does add something different when Don tells us Halo 4, because you played it with your wife, right? That was like the thing you went through. And the story really stuck out to you, so that was something you liked. And whereas me, I just can't wait till they just wipe out the Prometheans in the first scene of Halo Infinite and get done with them.
Give them the Joe Madama treatment.
Wipe out half the squads, half the Spartans, and we can get this thing.
Mike Coulter in a robot costume stabs the Prometheans.
Take out each other
on the ground.
Yeah, they just all go, and then we can have a nice reboot from the simple
classic Halo.
Yeah. So obviously we have that diverse. We bring all that, but that actually could bring us into. This would be a good transition into one of our topics today, because with the Ask 343 update, we got a couple things this week that got our groups of Halo fans, I guess, out in the community and on the message boards. I don't know, yelling for Reddit. More contentious. A little bit. Some people were kind of throwing up on their keyboards. People were a little bit angry. Over some of the news, and this is the first time I'd say since 343 has been providing these updates. It's the first time I maybe felt that kind of negativity from part of the community. Right. Not everybody though, and I'm probably not as negative. So let's start with that. During the Ask for 343, they brought up the dual wielding is not in the game, and it's currently not in the cards. He says, we can do everything, but they want to focus on weapons, grenades, melee, and their focus on equipment is why dual wielding is not present. And then the other thing was there's no playable elites. And this is because it's a Master Chief story, and they did say never say never to that, but right now it's not in there. So I'm going to go ahead and start. We'll kind of rotate through these different topics, give everybody a chance to go first on them. But I'm going to, again, with our guests, I want to start with you, and kind of with you interacting with the community and everything. What was some of your thoughts on this, and help everybody kind of understand why some people are upset and what your opinion on that all is.
Yeah. As far as the dual wielding goes, I do understand the mechanical reason why it was cut. Even Bungie kind of described it as like this parasitic thing that they
Right.
introduced and didn't know how to balance, and it was getting harder and harder to design sandboxes because of what it did. As well as just the way, like, something that's really important about infantry combat in Halo is the golden triangle.
Yes.
Is your melee, your gun, and your grenade.
Yeah.
And when you're dual wielding, you've lost the ability to melee, and it's just like the controls get kind of weird and sloppy. So I do understand that it's a little bit easier on the developers if they can design without this like weird thing. Even the modern Call of Duty games, Modern Warfare 2 kind of went crazy with this dual wield system. Same with Black Ops. But then as Call of Duty went on, they started to kind of tone down the dual wielding. And now it's pretty much absent from the Call of Duty franchise outside of like pistols. But so I understand that. I don't think dual wielding needs to be given up on. I think you could design it in a way that would be cool. Something that I pitch is maybe make it an aesthetic thing. Like when you pick up the SMG, it's 2 of them.
Yeah.
And that's what the view model looks like. Functionally, you can balance it around just being a gun, but like you go.
You still wouldn't be able to throw grenades. Like maybe you could throw your gun.
you could. They're game developers. They can figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, if they at least introduced melee into the situation, and I never even thought about the whole, just making it so it's only a dual wielding weapon.
Yeah, and
that would be a good way to balance it.
Unique that you can fire 2.
Yeah, because any of those dual wielding weapons are largely useless by themselves.
Yeah,
I mean, outside of like maybe the plasma pistol, stuff
I
like
mean,
that.
hell, the conversation on in terms of sandbox redundancy, what makes an SMG different from an assault rifle? How could you make those 2 guns distinct? I've got a solution. Make the SMG 2 guns.
Yeah.
Instead of aiming down the sights with it, you fire the gun that's in your left hand.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
And I mean,
you go ahead, Mike. I
that
you like Halo 3, so
I never really used the dual wielding. I mean, I've never been a big fan of dual wielding, so that's one of the things that makes the sandbox in Halo 2. I don't know, of the first 3. I think the sandbox, the weapon sandbox in Halo 2 is the least satisfying, just because it's so reliant on dual wielding.
It's very strangely balanced. Halo 2.
There's just, I mean, especially when it comes to automatic weapons, there's no single satisfying weapon. It's you either have a gimped assault rifle, or SMG or plasma rifle or and it's just, I don't know. I like that there's no dual wielding right now, because if they add it, I want them to take their time into it. Plus, I think it would work best if they have it all balanced, not around dual wielding, and if they can incorporate dual wielding without breaking the sandbox, then that might be the best way to actually handle dual wielding in general. I can see the frustration or the negative, why there's negativity on it, but I'm surprised at how much there is. Like, I didn't realize that dual wielding was that popular.
Oh yeah, there is value to aesthetic, like just the aesthetic. Like it is cool that Chief is holding 2 guns.
Oh man, Halo 2, that poster. Oh.
Yeah. So that's why I pitch, like, okay, mechanically, maybe not the way it was implemented in Halo 2 or 3, but just make one of the guns in the sandbox 2 guns.
Right. Hey Daniel, I know you've been a little bit quiet so far. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah. I mean, I was not to be the contrarian intentionally here, but it's been 14 years since a Halo has launched with dual wielding. Why? I mean, this is kind of a classic case of the Halo. Some of the vocal Halo community pitching a fit to pitch a fit, because again, 14 years there hasn't. Reach didn't have dual wielding. ODST did not. 4 did not, 5 did not. Why would there be any expectation, especially at launch, that dual wielding would be in here? I mean, I agree with Taras that, some weapons like, your SMG, or maybe, I guess Needler, if you really had to, if you wanted to make something aesthetically dual wielding, fine. But I mean, the problem always was balance. I mean, a lot of people love 3, but 3 was not well balanced in a lot of regards because of dual wielding. So I mean, it's just weird that this was one of those things that they latched onto.
It's the expectation that I think, I largely agree that dual wielding is cool and can be returned. What I don't agree with is the surprise that it's not returning.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't going to return.
Yeah, there's been 2 games out of 7 that have not had dual wielding, or that have had dual wielding. The rest have not had it at all. And again, 14 years. More than half the time that the franchise has existed, there has not been a game that has had dual wielding.
Yeah, the thing always surprised me on it is, first of all, I was not aware this was something that people were still clamoring for. I thought it was only maybe the most casual people that maybe played Halo 2 when it first launched. Because if you remember, like, they switched everything over to BR and competitive, right? Like for 2 and 3, that's where the competitive went. And usually, like, when you hear people that are hardcore on it, when they focus on why they don't like Spartan powers and things like that, and they focus on all the things you can do, when you don't have to aim down sights and and run and all this stuff like that. It feels to me like dual wielding almost contradicts all of that, because it's like it adds this randomness to the overall game that does reduce the skill gap, because there is some luck, right? Because you start off with a nothing weapon, and I guess you don't have to start with that weapon. But then in that case, then why would you ever pick up a weapon that would be dual wielded, unless it is, like you were saying, Tross, something where both weapons are there. And I do remember, like, Halo 2, the first time they ever showed Master Chief. Remember when they did the first time they did it at E3, they went to
the demo?
Yeah, the audience went crazy.
That was probably one of the biggest E3 pops of all time, was when he picked up that second weapon, and people were just like, this is badass.
Yeah, people lost their minds when he did that at E3.
Yep.
I think another part of it was that a Marine gave you the second SMG. So not only were you picking it up off the floor, but it was like an injured Marine that was handing it to you. So it just brought this dynamic to the world that you typically didn't see in console shooters back then, or maybe really many shooters in general.
Well, part of that was because most of that demo never made it into a single Halo.
Yeah.
Bring E3 demos.
I mean, talking about a gun being 2 guns when you pick it up, that's how Bungie got that to work. The dual wielding system wasn't actually ready yet. So that SMG they used in the E3 demo, it's a gun that is 2 guns when you pick it up.
Oh, I did not know that.
I didn't know that either. Hey, Dan, I didn't get your thoughts on this. What things, or Jesse, what was your thoughts when you heard about that?
It's so much of that subreddit is just looking for outrage half the time from a small but very vocal part of that community, where it's, what can we find about in this torrent of positive news? Because all these Ask 343s and all these blog posts have been really positive and have made people really happy, like after the screenshots showing the improvement in the graphics and talking about the plans they already had. Like, a lot of this stuff isn't new. It's not changing because they delayed. The delay is the polish and maybe going back to some ideas they had canned. But like, most of this stuff just giving us this really good deep dive on their decision making and what we can expect. You don't get that from AAA games normally. It's pretty much only a positive at this point, and you can have actual criticisms that you levy that, think about. Don't be. It just comes off so whiny
and entitled.
It's just people who, like, I want this thing that's not actually that big a thing in Halo, like playing as an elite, which you could do in 2 campaigns and 1 multiplayer mode in Reach, or the friggin' dual wielding, which was only in a couple games. It's like, I can understand you really like that and you want it, that's fine, but the level of animosity and anger over it is typical Reddit shitlording.
I was gonna say, I feel like a lot of people, especially a lot of classic fans, have a misconception about Halo Infinite, where they keep seeing 3 for 3 mention classic art style, back to Halo 3, back to CE in terms of aesthetics or in terms of feeling. But this is not going to be a classic game, you know?
It's
And
meant to invoke those feelings.
Exactly. But I feel like people are setting themselves up for maybe disappointment where they expect it to be like this full-on classic style game when that is not the case.
You mean I can still sprint? Oh no!
Exactly, right? So when you keep seeing news like this, and it's all positive news, and then they get in their head somehow that also, not to mention, there was that.
I feel like you guys are talking about me, but go on.
Remember what happens was same thing happens all the time, really, the hype cycle, right? And one of the previous months, I think it might have been January, people got it in their heads that, oh, this little hint they meant, I think the word was like, this is not all you can play like, or something like that, means it's playable elites, meaning it's 100% playable elites. And I'm actually really happy 343 went, and even in this small ask 343 confirmed that they are not there, right? Because that would have been a stupid talking point months down the line when we got it later.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the playable elites is something maybe you throw in there for fun down the road, but that ruined. That's another thing that really messed up the balance, right? So again, when you start thinking about them trying to make a multiplayer that is something that holds up and can be competitive, and that stuff still matters for Halo. You know, the fact that it can be a well-balanced competitive Halo, those types of things really don't work in that. And so you would want them, I think, working on that foundation. And then if they want to throw some of that fun stuff in down the road and just have like some, I don't know, just some fun modes. And, Halo does do a lot of that. It seems like that would be the time to bring in the elites. But I guess this brings up a good question, because what I find is interesting is when I'm playing with, I like both old and new Halo, and maybe I'm in this weird place, so I don't really complain too much about either one. I put in over 2,000 hours into the Halo 5 multiplayer, and I don't usually play that much. I don't usually have that much time for gaming, so obviously I really like it. But Halo CE is still my favorite. But when I talk to my friends when I'm playing Halo 5, one of the things they're a little bit concerned. They're like, well, the art style is they took a step back, and they're a little bit worried that it's maybe going too far back towards the classics. And somebody made a joke about like Master Chief's wearing dad bod armor, whereas where I really like the Master Chief's armor and this art style, and it just feels like you got the two sides. And when they're trying to thread this needle, it seems you're getting complaining from both. And I've heard this argument from both sides where they say if you try to go down the middle, you're going to make neither side happy. So first, I want to get your opinion on this one again, Taras. What do you think about that? Because you've heard this over time. Yeah. And I know that, again, most of your audience is probably more towards the classics. But what do you think? Are you thinking they're on the right track here, or they can pull this off? Or who do you think is going to, in the end, be the content group, and who's going to probably walk away from this the most disappointed?
As far as the playable elites go, so I'm actually in the camp that I was both surprised and pretty annoyed by it, and then my annoyance levels were elevated by what was, in my opinion, the very bad excuse, which was, this is a Master Chief story. Like, okay, yeah. Halo 3 was a Master Chief story. That didn't stop them there. Reach, story about Noble 6. That didn't stop playable. Like, yeah. The Spartan, like what happened to the Halo experience. Halo is bigger than just Spartans. And to deliberately make the Halo experience smaller in scope, it's like, dude, it's a hitbox. I don't believe that tuning how a player strafes and how high they can jump, like, I don't buy that as an excuse. Like, I would have preferred if they were just honest and said they were focusing on just getting the gameplay down and they didn't have time to animate and rig up an elite. Like, instead of this whole, like, our vision was this spark. Like, no, just be honest. You guys didn't have time. Just be honest. Don't lie to me.
When they did say never say never, right?
Exactly,
So
yeah.
that gives you a hint that
Never say never. But also, I'm like, guys, we still can't even hit Halo Reach in terms of content day one. Like, come on.
So what are you thinking right now, like when it comes to where they are headed? And you again be more on your audience be more on the classic side of things.
This definitely isn't a classic game. I mean, gameplay wise, they were talking about like the equipment and stuff. What we saw shown off was way closer to armor abilities than they were free equipment. Like you press a button to activate a superpower that is for the person who activates it, like the grappling hook.
Yeah.
The most I could say that was equipment like was the portable shield thing that he threw, but even then when I looked at it, that thing doesn't look banished. It looks like UNSC tech, which tells me the banished probably aren't going to be using it.
Hopefully.
I hope
they
they
use it. Yeah.
But
So
like I'm not gonna,
okay.
we're not going to see brutes using the grappling hook. And the fact that little drop shield thing looked like UNSC tech, I was kind of like, oh, these are all going to be UNSC equipment, aren't they?
I'm actually hoping that the grappling hook is the only thing you keep in the campaign.
Like permanently, you mean?
Yeah.
But I say that not like in a bad thing, because it's like I didn't expect Halo Infinite to be a classic style game. I was just hoping that it would be a bit more in the spirit of a classic game while keeping the things that it wants to keep. Like Sprint, everyone was shocked that Sprint was in the game. It's like, no? Come on, guys. I don't like Sprint in Halo, but I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not going to kill the game for me.
So I mean, so that's something that's always been hugely contentious. Do you think that something like Sprint is that basically a deal breaker for like a lot of the people that you see in that you hear in your forums or I guess in your chats from your videos, or is that something that that they just like to bitch about, but they're still going to end up playing it?
I think it's almost like I do believe that some people genuinely do just prefer how Halo levels and maps are designed when Sprint isn't a factor. But then there are some people where it's just like, okay, guys, it's a piece of entertainment software. Why are you this angry?
That's human history. People always latch onto something, whether it's anything from sports to living here versus living there in the same city versus religion to pretty much anything that they can identify with as a person. And they love Halo, so they're going to identify with this game, and it ends up meaning so much more than it should to anyone who's being healthy. It's just it's the human condition for
like
all of recorded history, and it's utterly ridiculous.
And for like talking about like the expectations and stuff, like a lot of the community anger, what is strange to me, even if I did be like, whoa, they're not doing playable elites like after Halo 4 and Halo 5. It's the weird amount of anger about it, where it's like I made a couple comments on Twitter, which was basically, I'm not happy. I think this is a mistake, and I am surprised after Halo 5 that they are repeating this mistake. That's all I'm saying on the matter. And then I get back to talking about the things I liked, which was like the banished fortresses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, there is some positive stuff there, guys.
Yeah.
I do wonder, though, how much, with this being a spiritual reboot, how much of that plays into, the missing things or things that you think should be in there after the third game in a series. And if it wasn't but then again, if it was still if it still followed the same series as 4 and 5, Elites took a backseat anyways.
Yeah. In fact, I feel like there's a higher chance of us getting playable Elites in Halo Infinite just as post-game content. If this...
That's probably what's going to
Yeah,
happen.
if this is Master Chief's story, like the main campaign, then what's stopping them from having an Arbiter story or another elite in the group of elites and like a post game?
You make them shorter elites with longer necks and just give them the exact same hitbox.
I wonder almost because like sometimes we'll criticize like why did they make this certain decision, and it's like I wonder how much of it is like I wonder what metrics they had, like Microsoft being like we want the Halo to be grounded. We want it to be marketable. I think people would be alienated if you could play as an alien in the multiplayer mode.
I don't think that's the point. I mean, you can look at the lore of 4 and 5, and it's infinitely more aware of the meta universe than any of the stuff that Bungie put out. So I don't know.
I agree there, but then you also have things like aiming down the sights. Like I do think some of that is because market research shows ADHD kids really like aiming down the sights in their shoes, so we have to have it.
Well, I think that's also. I mean, there are there's so much discourse online where people say, "Oh, this is the dumbest decision ever." Like the elites thing, for one. I don't know if there's a good faith argument that you could make that Bungie never considered balance at all when they made their games. You look at 5, and
also,
it's
they
infinitely.
probably don't need to, considering the kind of game it is. What's great about a sandboxy game is that the developer has complete control over if it plays well. Like, if we put a sniper on this map and the sniper is way too overpowered, just forge it out. And replace it with a shotgun or something. Like that is why I'm actually an advocate for an imbalanced sandbox, because I think that's way more interesting than if every gun kind of flatly was like, every gun contests with another gun.
That's not what I mean when I'm talking about balance. I'm talking about the fact that again, when you consider the elites, it's a totally different hitbox. It's a totally different. I mean, everything you're used to in terms of.
That's why they weren't in competitive.
Okay, well then let's play it fair. If we're harkening back to CE, what wasn't in CE for multiplayer? Elites.
Oh yeah, but there was a lot more that wasn't in CE.
That was pretty basic. Yeah, I mean,
well, the multiplayer was also scrapped and rebooted 6 months before launch.
I think
or something with CE.
Rebooted. I think it was just made
like worked on. Damn.
Yeah, like it was really well. Though a lot of that game was really rushed. Think about it.
Stories about how they had like some kind of prototype matchmaking thing before we even knew to call the system matchmaking that Microsoft wanted them to hold off because Xbox Live was on the horizon. And so that was almost like developed as a core tenet of Halo 2.
I guess, one of the things I think about when, you find out that they don't have something like this, I mean, obviously it's a prioritization thing, right? So regardless of whether they didn't have time or whatever, it had to be low on the list for it to.
The game was delayed for a year,
Yeah, I mean,
playable elites are not part of the game, and the game was delayed for a year. Like,
there's also
the developers on this one.
That tells me that they were just behind more so than they probably want to lead people to believe.
Or the priorities.
What's interesting is it's not like an Anthem situation where they were super vague up until launch. People just did like we have concrete details about what Halo Infinite is. To the point that people have already kind of started mapping out what the story might be in their head. Like with Anthem, you didn't have that. And the fact that it was delayed for like a year, and we still have concrete details coming out about the game. Yeah, it seems like from a technical standpoint, it just wasn't, they showed it off too early.
Yep.
Yeah. So for like the one thing that I think is always a saving grace of this Halo, though, is they said it is going to be one of those platforms that's 10 years, and we'll see how that kind of
10-year threat.
So I mean, it gives them a lot of opportunities to come out with new modes, come out with to try weird and different things.
It will be very different in like 5
years.
100%.
Yeah, and I think that they're trying to start with a foundation, one that can be taken seriously from a competitive standpoint, which I understand. Like that's something they want to nail initially. They also want it to have elements that are going to appeal to I get, the Fortnite crowd and this newer generation of free to play gamers that wasn't even, wasn't gaming back when the Bungie Halos were, the original trilogy was out.
Some of them.
Yeah, some of them weren't. I mean, you got these kids now, and they're a lot of, they're worth a lot of money in terms of gaming dollars, with
that's like, like when we were young and we were all playing games, there was X amount of players that played games worldwide. Now there's like quadruple that.
Yeah. Oh, more than that, and it's gonna get even bigger because it's like once they start
kids are born every day. I didn't know
that is science.
There are new gamers every day.
There's more opportunities for people for parents to name their kids Ross, right? So
exactly.
Oh, hey, so I didn't get too many of your thoughts on this, and I know you're a little bit younger, so like kind of what's going through your head with some of this stuff? Did you think either way? Were you surprised?
I mean, the little hint they had with the elites, it would have been nice. It would have been fun to see elites in the game, but if they want to prioritize other stuff, that's okay with me. I do want to see them though. I want to see either playable elites or at least a story mission where you play as an elite in Infinite at one point. I feel like there's a lot of cool stuff they can do there, even at just like a narrative standpoint.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
go ahead, Mike.
I'd say my biggest disappointment when they said no elites was meant that we weren't going to see an invasion mode or an evolution of something like that.
Asymmetrical game types, banished versus C.
Stuff like that, I thought had a lot of potential that Bungie really didn't get even close to. Like, I don't know how many people here played Killzone 2's multiplayer. I forget what it was, but it had like objectives within the competitive field.
What do you mean?
Well, like I think one was like hacking a computer or something.
Oh, okay.
Wait, you played Killzone 2 multiplayer?
Oh, it was awesome.
Were you like really bored? No, I'm just kidding.
Killzone 2 is a wild game.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite like comedy games, just because it's like this is so bad.
Rico? Don't even get me started on Rico. Anyways, but no, like the asymmetrical, semi-objective based. I think
you remember that it was like almost roaming. You were kind of moving all over the map, accomplishing different tasks and goals.
What game are we talking about?
Killzone.
Yeah. I forget what it was called. Maybe Warzone or something. Or
I do think they called it Warzone.
Really?
It was a really fun multiplayer mode. And if they having something like that, but on a bigger scale with elites versus Spartans, that's what I pictured originally when Bungie announced Invasion and for Reach before I actually played it. And like I said, like I didn't like sitting in an area with holographic walls to build up a bar. To me, that I mean, it's not satisfying, and it kind of does fit within it. But
hey, Mike, guess what? We have enough Halo content that we don't need to do Killzone 2. We don't need to fill dead air. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be rude. I'm always
first. You guys should upload a Killzone podcast.
That would really differentiate you.
I would love to join you guys because Killzone is a franchise I have a lot of opinions about. Not many of them are positive.
You know what, Mike and Late Night Gaming can film that, and we can see how many views we get.
This be like the most negative podcast. Like Killzone 1. Yeah. Anyways, no, I'm not even going to start it. See, look what you guys are doing. No.
Yeah. No. All right. Let's keep going.
I'm pretty sure Halo won, by the way.
What'd you say?
Nothing. It was just a bad joke on his Killzone 1 point.
Oh.
I was going to say, did you correct him and say it's Killzone Combat Evolved, not Killzone
1? All right. We're banning the word Killzone from the rest of the show. So we're going to move on. And did anybody else want to talk about that, or did we kind of everybody get a chance to get their 2 cents in regarding
Killzone?
No, dual wielding and playable, and the balancing. Is that anybody want to kind of throw in any more 2 cents there, or you want to move on to the next topic? Good. All right. So I do want to bring up next, touch on some of the things they were talking about with the environment, because a lot of this was pretty interesting, at least to me. And I know Mike, you mentioned it too. And I personally, like when they start talking about some of these sandboxy things or environmental things that are going on within the sandbox, my imagination kind of starts running all over the place on what they could do with it. So I'll read off a few of the bullets, maybe not every single thing, but just to kind of give us an idea here. But a couple of things that are confirmed. So in order to help make the ring feel alive, in addition to day and night, they have weather systems. This includes a wind system. However, there's not rainstorms or snowstorms at launch, though they're excited about the futures, implying that stuff will probably come down the road. One thing that they did confirm was day-night does affect what enemies you'll run into. So grunts sleep more at night, phantoms have searchlights and are around more, coil, shield enemies, etc. also appear
all the right things.
Yep, appear more in the dark areas. There's no hostile wildlife in the game at the moment. So this goes back to what you were talking about early on, where they didn't have it in Halo 1. And so basically,
it's not in Halo Infinite. Chances are they already tried it and they couldn't figure out how to make it fun.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's a few things that's been going on. It's probably been part of the delays where they've tried things and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, and trust me, if a thing is cut, it was cut for a good reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
It
is cool, but you don't want it in the game because it'll make the game worse.
Yeah. Yep. Let me see. I'll just read off a couple more, and then I'll kick it off to you guys to kind of give your opinions on what stuff really stood out to you. They said there was multiple biomes, but the Pacific Northwest is the primary one. Nothing is stopping you from grabbing a banshee and jumping to something further out in the story, even though the story is linear. The ring skybox is full 3D, which kind of made me start thinking, because there was a lot of rumors, and I guess we'll get into that a little bit earlier about like what Halo was supposed to be, and then they kind of scaled some things back. So I think that's a hint that maybe some of those rumors might have been accurate. And then they said they just put in a lot of effort into the mixing in the scenery with major mega structures, so just so they can add that sense of scale. But anyways, I'll stop with the bullets. I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
I don't.
Go ahead, Mike.
I don't think they said that you can jump ahead in the story, though. They said that you can jump ahead in areas.
Yeah,
but they have it structured or designed in a way where you can't skip ahead in the story, which is pretty nice to have that flexibility.
Like you can jump around in the environments, but then the story is a linear thread. So the story will progress in a linear fashion, but you can jump around in the actual game world, I guess.
It's kind of funny seeing the headlines where it's like Halo Infinite is not open world. Yes, we knew that a few months ago, if not years ago.
They made that very clear back in July, guys. You're all just
right. People are still calling it open world though, so they gotta still keep hammering that, because I keep hearing people go, I'm still excited about Halo being open world. It's like, okay, so I guess they just got to keep hammering it. But now, Mike, I know you jumped in earlier. You said like some of this stuff really was the most exciting out of this update. What is the thing that really stood out to you?
I mean, I'm hoping that it's going to be randomized, which may or may not be a good thing based on the time of day. But, when you think about, so their weather system is pretty limited. Like I wouldn't even really call it much of a weather system, but they said about how there's like mist and fog and wind properties that they can have in there. So I'm just thinking about how, like, I'm hoping, like, this brings me hope that we're going to have like really moody moments like we saw in like Halo CE levels, where, you're at night or ODST, where you're at night and there's a fog rolling in. You got banished spaceships going around with their spotlights, and you can see like jackal shields off in the distance, like just with Halo 4, not and especially Halo 5. I mean, Halo 4 had its moments, but just those more down moments of that just immerse you in the mood and the feeling of the environments and the moment. I'm hoping that comes back. That's what that tells me. That we'll possibly see moments like that. And then another thing is like I'm really intrigued with the 3D model for the ring. Like that moment they said that there's going to be that moment where there's a solar eclipse with because of the ring.
I didn't even write that.
I really hope they pull that off well. I mean, there just seems to be a lot of positive visual feedback that could potentially be, I don't know, presented to the player that has been missing from 343 Halo games. You had moments of that in Halo 4, but Halo 5 really, I don't know.
Nothing stands out to me in terms of like that like you're mentioning that change in tone, and that's like one of the things that really stood out. And I know like Mr. Taras there kind of mentioned that too, that how everything felt really different. Despite being the levels themselves sometimes being very repetitive, they really set different. They almost were characters in of themselves. I remember the first time I ever saw Halo, it was on a kiosk, and this is I told you the story, like that's where I should have got in trouble with my ex, but bought an Xbox because of it. But when I saw them in that night scene where they're you had the snipers and you're kind of waiting, you're kind of waiting in the distance, and just like that the tone that's set, and I just kind of listening here and it reading all that stuff out loud, it just gets you thinking about potentially some of dynamically recreating some of these things, so people have their own maybe I guess their own moments with like where you start mixing in the fog and the nights. And I did like how they mentioned that the characters will do different things, so they can kind of balance that with the overall mood. But ambition's like really the thing that's standing out here, because when they started saying that that's not just a skybox, you can go to it. It sounds like they started off with a pretty high level of ambition, which we heard. I don't know if you guys heard this, but there was rumors for a while that you were going to be allowed to go from one side of the ring. I think even like Alana Pierce mentioned something like that. Like you were going to be able to go from one side of the ring to just take a vehicle and fly all the way out to this other side in the distance. And then it sounded like that was kind of scaled back or something over time, but it sounds like that was the initial tension. What do you guys think? Like, what are some other thoughts that come to your minds? Who wants to go? Mr. Daniel, you want
to? Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I mean, this all sounds great. I mean, it sounds like this has become a hate on Halo 4 and 5 podcast, but a lot of this stuff too never happened in CE 2, 3, ODST, Reach. So I feel like this is really, we talk about the balance between old and the new. I am a fan of every Halo, but I tend not to romanticize very flawed issues with those older games. But the fact that there is, they made it very clear it is not open world. There are no, stupid collectibles. There's no flags to collect. This is very much, from what we've always said, it seemed like it was going to be a larger string of areas with, with the linear sections, like a traditional Halo from there. And the fact that you can still do, like, it's still gated from a narrative standpoint, but you can still kind of step away and do something different. It's like Nick and Abe and Mike have said several times about, we want to be able to explore. We want to be able to have a reason to explore and to have something cool to find in that exploration. And it sounds very much like that is exactly what they're aiming for.
Yeah. So go ahead. I was about to ask you, because I'm really curious about your opinions, because if you can make a video about the reload, you must have had 1,000 thoughts here.
Yeah, like the whole idea of like randomized encounters and stuff like that, and kind of like more, not open world, but like just large environments that you can progress through. I'm of the opinion that Halo can work in an open world setting. This obviously isn't open world, but like some people are like super worried that we'll end up with Far Cry Halo, and I'm of the opinion that Halo has a lot of similarities to Far Cry because of the way that usually all encounters in a Halo game are you initiating contact. You see enemies from a distance, you approach them, and then you initiate the encounter, and the enemies are responding to you. Like, it's not like Gears of War, where usually it's kind of like a clown car, like a bunch of guys pile out of a room, you know, and then you all take up cover. So like, Halo already just inherently can work in super large environments, just because it's always the player initiating contact with the enemy.
Or how about Call of Duty, where you just don't even know where you're getting shot at from?
Yeah, and you wait for your buddy to run up so that he can open a door for you. Yeah, like this is all stuff that does work in a Halo game already, and it's kind of cool that they are like, if they did envision that they wanted it to be this like crazy thing where you could go to the other side of the ring, and then they scaled it down, like, okay, it still sounds really cool.
Yeah. Like one of their main inspirations being
they kept bringing up Silent Cartographer.
Thank you God. It's that being their main inspiration just puts a smile on my face.
Blueprint for how to design good Halo.
Why they say it, because it puts a smile on people's faces.
Yeah.
It's going to be infinitely more complex than that level actually was.
Yeah,
and you sure as hell don't want to mention the library, which was also in the same
game. I actually like the library.
Because Halo 4 also originally Halo 4 was envisioned to be kind of like those like large scale environments, but unfortunately the 360 they were squeezing blood from a stone at that.
Yeah. Halo 4 is one of the most linear Halo games. In fact, I think it is the most linear Halo game.
It's a corridor shooter. Yeah.
I don't think Halo 4 is as linear as people remember.
The vehicle sections are very linear, and that really dominates the memories because you have a tank.
That's true.
And you have a corridor you go through with the tank, and you don't get a huge open area a few times. A few times you do.
But I mean, I think if you compare it to
Halo 3 and its Scorpion sequences, they're kind of the same. I think it's just like
they're absolutely the same. I played that mission last night on one of the cross
I think Halo 4 more so suffers a little bit from like that kind of like heavy use of long range encounters and long range weapons. So you do kind of feel like encounters are a bit more like shooting gallery. It also doesn't help that like they inherited a problem that Bungie designed in Reach that I hated, which is the elites can sprint while firing their gun, but you can't. So like elites will be backpedaling at like the speed of a warthog while blasting you. It's just obnoxious combat with the elites in Halo Reach and Halo 4.
I think Halo 2 is still the most linear Halo game, just because it was on the OG Xbox. At that point, they were also, trying to pull blood from a stone, and
like the library environment in Halo 2 when you're the Arbiter and you move through Delta Halo's library, and it's like a third the size of the one in Combat Evolved.
Yeah.
Memory issues.
All right, let's throw this one out because this is something we actually haven't talked about in any of our other shows, but I think it's a good time. You mentioned squeezing blood from a stone for both Halo 2 and 4, right? Like, and that's probably why those things got limited down. Yeah. So am I the only one? So like even before anything was ever shown in July, which admittedly I was very disappointed with the graphics and visuals of the July show. But despite that, was I the only one beforehand that was kind of hoping that they didn't shoot for the stars with the graphics? Because long term, especially with at some point they're going to let go of the Jaguar cores, right? And they're going to eventually be making DLC that's all on the new hardware, just probably like how Destiny comes out with their large expansions. And I just look at it like if they're not throwing everything they have into just like super detailed textures and, with a lot of busy stuff on it, that just gives them a lot of room to just create these crazy sandboxes, which, that was one of the things for me. Like, you think about the Silent Cartographer, and it was like how that was like, that's my favorite level of all time in Halo. And it's just like, because it does a perfect job of like having these big moments and then these quiet moments. And, but you can't have that today. Like, I don't know, we've had so much sensory overload and stuff like that I think it's harder to make those big moments really stand out.
There's a reason that tech demos look photorealistic. It's because a tech demo is isolated to like a room.
Yeah.
Like, design an entire video game to look like a tech demo.
Right, and duct tape together, right? Like the Halo 2 demo. So, but so I haven't got your thoughts in a little bit. What's some of your thoughts going through your mind about the environments?
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of points here. I think one of the best things still has to be the fact that they said the enemies would kind of dynamically change based off the environments and the night-day cycle. I don't know if anyone else here feels the same, and might sound a little. I might need therapy or something. But when you melee sleeping grunts, oh man, one of the most satisfying. It's the sound, the feeling. Oh,
that's something that really hasn't been. I mean, there was some moments of that in ODST and 3, but I don't think anything captured those moments from CE.
CE, right? Yeah, with the long bridge. Oh man,
where and I mean,
health sequences.
Yeah. And that's one of the strengths, I think, of how Halo, like Taras mentioned earlier, just like with like Far Cry, with Halo, you
initiate contact.
Yeah, you initiate contact, you're interrupting them, but it's what they're doing that was unique with CE, because typically when any other shooters, you're interrupting a bunch of troops on patrol. Whereas this, you had grunts that were sleeping, which was unique.
Or you'll usually see elites entering a building and jackals set up outside. Okay, got it. They're going into that Forerunner. So, like, they're always doing something. You feel like you're interrupting something important.
Yeah, and see that one encounter, you open in Assault and Cartographer, and there's like a full-blown battle happening right in front of you. Right, it felt amazing.
Yeah.
Which was one of the biggest back then. That moment was just like a wow, like a wow moment, and that's some of the stuff I hope they get back to. But go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
So, like, I mean, regarding the environments, I like what I'm hearing about the environments. I don't think, I mean, anything that they're shooting for high end like textures and stuff, that can all be scaled down for the last gen. That's not going to really limit anything, I wouldn't think. I'm less concerned about the graphics and I'm not concerned about the gameplay, but like when I hear things like they're going to dynamically change the type of enemies that you run into or the encounters you have based on whether you're in a Scorpion tank or on foot, I'm hopeful that the encounters are still well designed, because they used examples in previous Halo games where there's a Scorpion section. And that's true. There were Scorpions, Halo 3 has an awesome Scorpion like vehicle sections, but they were all very carefully designed around you being in a Warthog or a Scorpion. And I hope that there's still that level of polish, even with that dynamic nature added to those encounters.
That's definitely a worry. Yeah.
I mean, it's
going to be up to the level designers. I think that could be done. It is like, again, you're making the sandbox, and I've always said in the past too, like I'd play Halo CE again with somebody just going in there and remixing the sandbox and seeing what would happen there, because some of those environments, I think you could do a lot of different things in them. But hey, Jesse, I know that I thought you were lost in the kitchen for like a half hour, so I feel really bad. Why don't you why don't we get some of your thoughts too, since I
would say that for older Bungie made Halo games, the level of polish people remember and think about is nothing I ever felt personally. I always felt it was more you just throw things at the player I don't honestly think it was super
But
polished. I
Bungie
think
Halos were
343
not very polished.
they were making them very fast on very short time frames, and 343 I think has had more of a focus at times to the detriment for some people who just want to be able to go in and blow things up but don't want to put it on easy because then they feel like a wimp. I think 343 has a much higher attention to actual balance and polish.
When I say polish, I don't mean like to the extent that they carefully calculated and tweaked having 5 grunts here and 2 brutes. What I guess what I think about polish when it comes to Bungie Halo games is just the way that the AI reacts.
Yeah.
How just no 2 fights can be the same, even if you approach them the same way.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
the feedback that you get from the AI is unlike anything else.
And to the
Halo
point that
AI
it's
was
kind of,
competent. It is not as good as that.
What
well,
now?
it's irritating to
Halo
talk
AI
about.
was always competent. It was good. I liked fighting against it, but on the whole, I don't know what people are talking about half the time when they say stuff like that.
The AI?
What is your experience playing Halo? Did you play it on the Master Chief Collection, or did you play the 360 and original Xbox versions?
I'm 38, so I played it on everything.
Okay. What is your most recent memory? Like when you do you jump on Combat Evolved on the MCC and you're like, this feels weird or dated? Because there are so many problems with the AI in the MCC versions of the Halo games. It's actually really annoying.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, a lot of AI logic is tied to frame rate on the Master Chief Collection. So, like as an example, in Combat Evolved, when you have an assault rifle and you're firing at an elite who has his shields down, there's a 1 in 30 chance that you'll stagger him with a bullet. On MCC, though, that's a 1 in 60 chance. If you're playing on PC, it's a 1 in 144. So it's little things like that. You should be staggering them more. Also, they should be firing at you way slower. For some reason on the Master Chief Collection, they're firing way too fast. Probably because of the increased frame rate.
Oh, I thought they fixed that.
No, they said they fixed it. The fix didn't do much. It also affects your gun, so like your pistol spreads way too fast. It's like after the first shot, it's already at max bullet spread, when it shouldn't do that. You should have like 3 or 4 shots before you're at max spread.
Well, I think you mentioned earlier that that Halo's never been perfectly balanced or anything, but that's always been kind of the charm of it too. It's like it's never been like you play a lot of other shooters and it's all right. You get the rocket for this area, you get the sniper for this area, you get it's always like really like too fine-tuned to everything, and kind of like sometimes with Halo it feels like you're doing things the developers didn't know you were going to do. Sometimes is what that felt like. So a lot of this is just going to come down to them making environments that are that are diverse, and then just having a good foundation with the like AI and stuff. And I think good AI, like people get like, when they say good AI, a lot of people think about AI just being super smart. When I think of good AI, it's about it having like a
personality.
Yeah, or it's like a puzzle, right? Like it forms a puzzle that you're trying to solve sometimes. And so it's about creating those good puzzle pieces more than it is about them being like super smart. It acts like a human.
It's
like, not that.
like you throw a plasma grenade, the jackals will roll out of it. You throw a frag and they won't roll out in time, right? That kind of
Kill
thing.
the elite, the grunts scatter, the jackals advance. Like they're all responding.
Yes, and it's like a puzzle, right? And that's what it really comes down to. It's like them getting. I do think that's where 343 really missed. When it came to their AI, it does seem like it took a step back in that regard over Halo 4 and 5. And so they've talked about it, and I hope they really didn't talk about it in this update. So I guess I should move on. But did anybody have anything else they want to add to this aspect?
One thing you didn't mention, which I think is pretty cool, is you can throw crap off the ring. They specifically mentioned that, and it doesn't sound that cool, but I'm just thinking that means you can go to the edge of the ring. That's just in terms of the pure skybox or the visuals. I mean, I'm sure everyone's here's played Destiny, right? One thing that game has in spades is phenomenal skyboxes. Like
Bungie's artists are talented.
yeah, like next level.
Yes.
Like what the
Bungie's
heck?
MO.
So I'm hoping this game can kind of also have some of that, especially at the very edge of the ring. That's gonna be some really cool sights, I feel.
Well, have you noticed already they've made changes to the skybox that I'm really happy with. In the original gameplay reveal, it annoyed me that the ring looked like it was in the sky of another planet. If that makes it didn't look like it was in outer space.
Mhm.
Right.
And now it does. Like if you look at some of that like shot of the banshees flying up to the ring, they released it a little while ago.
Like
it was one of the
atmosphere feels
improvement
thinner,
spots.
that kind of thing, right? Yeah.
You can see like there's stars and stuff, and there's a bit of an atmosphere where in the original game, like you can just visibly see the ring off in the distance, and you can see behind the ring is an atmosphere, like the sun orange glare. Like it just looks like it's in the sky of another planet.
Yeah, that sounds pretty awesome. I didn't even think about that. So kicking somebody off the edge and then, what are they going to float into outer space?
Imagine
guess?
having like multiplayer maps at the edge of the ring, stuff like that. A lot of cool possibilities.
I just want to know what the edge of the ring looks like, because obviously it's not going to be like kicking them off a mountain, right? So it's going to be like kicking them off a planet.
What would happen? Would
Blowing
you
up
just
and beat
fall
up
and then hit zero gravity and you'd float off?
I don't
Or would you
know.
land on the other side of the band?
What'd you say, Jesse?
It's not just going all the way to the edge. It's also the fact that it's a beat up and blown up ring. So I'm sure there are plenty of places in between, in the middle of it, where you just look down and you see the stars.
I'm definitely going to run a tank straight through a hole and fall off the ring for sure. That is happening.
In the original Combat Evolved, Bungie, one of their iterations of the story, had the ring destroyed. Or not destroyed, but damaged.
The main ring in Halo CE?
Yeah, there are pre-release screenshots of that version of the story. Like the skybox, the ring is missing a chunk.
Does that sound familiar? Yeah.
Well, is it? And this one's supposed to be damaged, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting that they're recycling a cut idea from Combat Evolved.
Well, it's not a first for 343. That Cortana going AWOL, that was something that Bungie considered in the past as well.
Yeah, for their version of Halo 4.
Yeah.
All right. So I am going to try to, I know we probably want to get to community questions here soon. So I'm going to try to skip ahead a little bit to, let's see here, a couple things with the story, and also I guess, Sol, you put some stuff up here about the Halo TV show as well, so maybe we'll just tie these all in together. So they said for the story, there's going to be audio logs in the game that you can find and tell stories of battles in the ring, personal stories. They complement environmental storytelling in many areas as well. They were likened to a cool radio drama. So that'll be interesting, because I'm sure most people here have heard the lead up to Halo 5, right? So they did a really good job with that, by the way. What was that called? Hunt the Truth, yeah. And then the other thing they talked about is that the cutscenes are affected by day and night cycles, so they're done live in engine. So no more blur cutscenes, which those are always fun to look at, but this probably will make it more immersive. And so whatever time of day you're using and whatever weapons you have, those are all going to be in those cutscenes. So and then really quickly, I don't know that this ties in at all, so you could pick and choose which one you want to talk about here. But they said for the Halo TV show, I don't know how this is going to tie in, but Kiki said it's not going to please everyone, but she wants it to still find an audience. And I don't know. So that's just interesting. That might not have anything to do with this. But all right, so let's go ahead and just talk about the story stuff. Who wants to jump in on that first? I guess you guys that are... let's go to you, Jesse. Since I lost you in the kitchen for a while, and also you are the one. You're one of the people on the panel here that read everything and have strong opinions about the books and things. So, any kind of thoughts, or did this do anything to your imagination in terms of how they might tie in all this extra story that a lot of people would never see if they don't read the books?
It made me think more they'll do that less. It'll just be more their story they're telling, tying into the games, maybe hitting some stuff from the stories, but overall, I don't think it's going to be fully beholden to any 343 story canon. They'll pull whatever elements they want from it, but it'll be its own thing to be the best TV show it can, because books rarely translate one-to-one. Video games definitely don't translate one-to-one. So, timing and everything is going to be very different. It's not going to be like the games. It's not going to be like the books. It's going to be like a very good TV show version of that if they pull it off.
Yeah. I agree with that. I do think it's cool though that we have our own special ed Nick starring in the show as Master Chief.
If he's wearing stilts, maybe.
Okay, he looks a lot like the main character. Okay, the actor. Anyways, speaking of the show itself, though, I feel that she didn't even need to say that. It's clearly not gonna make everyone happy because you have completely different groups, even with Halo lore, right? In fact, you have people already hating on the show just because of the one synopsis. What was it? A human is raised by the Covenant and hates humanity. That's not that far out there. I don't think so anyway.
It's a bit far out there, right?
Well, I mean, humans fighting humans have been a staple in Halo lore for years.
Fighting humans. The Covenant being like you're with us.
Well, the Covenant are pretty separated, right? You can have like one group that doesn't really give a crap about the religious aspect, and they're like,
this is the Covenant, like the human Covenant, War Covenant.
Even then, I mean, like they're not all the same, unless we're talking about like Prophet of Regret, Truth, and whatnot.
That's those guys.
Does this not take place during the original war?
It does, yeah.
It takes place during the Human Covenant War around the time of the Fall of Reach. Not like that event.
A little bit before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's.
It would make more sense.
Version of everything.
It would make more sense to me if we were talking about the Banished, because there's human soldiers in the Banished, but that doesn't really make much. To me, that seems like they're just stretching things to add another.
If you're tying it directly to how things work in the book, in the games, maybe. Even then, these are about billions of different people in aliens and all that. We've only met a few hundred. So your mind can open up enough to where
that's my thing.
This one contingent has one human being that grew up with them. And you can freaking handle it. I promise. There's so many possibilities out the universe. It's not.
I'm not saying that it's gonna.
It's the universe. It's big.
I know. I'm not saying that it's gonna like kill. It automatically kills the concept of the series.
The story they're telling is good. Why are we gonna let that? Ruin.
Basically. People who tie it into, I really want to see exactly what I always took as the canon of the story. And when you set those expectations and try to predict everything, if it isn't exactly what you want, then it's bad. And a lot of people fall into that trap.
The show isn't going to be part of the canon, like clearly already. Like they casted Miranda Keyes as like a Dr. Miranda Keyes. Okay, got it. So this is like, it's kind of like the Lord of the Rings books versus the Lord of the Rings movies. Like they're not exact. There are differences between the two. This is a different story that is Halo.
So who's okay with that and who's a little bit disappointed? I'll admit I'm a little bit disappointed.
I'm just finding out about all of this, and I'm pretty. I can't say I'm disappointed. I am surprised. I'll wait until I see it, and I'll give it a fair shake to share.
But I like Halo Legends.
Oh, Halo Legends was great. Oh man.
Yes.
Yeah. Halo Legends was awesome.
Yeah, and that kind of didn't make sense within the canon of like. I just like Halo. I want to see Master Chief. I don't care if it's a canon story or not.
And one thing I feel is actually really nice is this was the main topic, right? That it's on, what was it, Paramount Plus, they called it. And it's not just on Paramount Plus, it's like it's one of its flagship titles.
They're hoping.
Yeah. So to me, hopefully that means they're giving it everything they can. Giving it The Witcher, the Game of Thrones, the Lord of the Rings treatment, however we want to call it.
Most of the Game of Thrones.
Well, in terms of budget, scope, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Better writing than season 8, hopefully.
I'd imagine that human character working with the Covenant, probably what they were envisioning was that like Game of Thrones drama.
Yeah.
What if we gave the aliens their own human?
That makes it sound like he's a
save on costumes if we have a human as the bad guy.
There is some, depending on how they they angle that. There's some definite interesting ways they can take that, especially with like if the human is a character to infiltrate. And
well, she is Covenant according to their synopsis. She was raised by them. She's even given a Covenant name. Her name's Maki.
oh, wow, I
Do you
didn't
know
realize
which
all this
race
info was out there.
raised them? Like, was it like jackals? Was it Sangheili?
It was just the Covenant, like the
Hmm.
proper capital
Huh.
C Covenant adopted her and raised her, and she's Maki, and she's one of them.
Raised by Covenant. That sounds.
I'll keep an open mind as we
Like
watch
the
it.
Canaanites, they don't like that because it doesn't make sense within the context of the game's universe. But like, okay, we've
Yeah.
already established this isn't
Yeah.
the proper Halo canon, guys. Let's see what this different Halo story is like. It could be like Halo Legends, where it's a cool, different thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be, and I understand that, and I'll give it a chance. Obviously, I'll probably look forward to it, and but at the same time, I do understand anybody who is a bit negative because it just feels like, you know, with Halo, you have such a wide universe, it's like so many options. It feels like you could have done something that was different enough in terms of where it took place, or I don't know who it involved, that it could have been its own thing, not beholden to anything in the games or books, yet still could have, paid
Been a great
homage
show.
to it. Yeah,
Been more
still-
faithful.
yeah, it could have been something else that maybe later on they could have tied it in. Like maybe later on in the Halo Infinite DLC, you have something that does bring in the show.
I mean,
You
Halo
know-
Wars 2 did that, right?
You know what? I'm hearing that actually makes me happy that they are diverging.
They'd run into the problem of what if they wanted to tell the Fall of Reach in their TV show in like season 4 or whatever, and the way that it worked in the book and the game isn't that interesting for TV.
Yeah.
True.
Like they can't figure, and they want to make it a little bit more dramatic.
Yeah, it was just
Right.
like, we
Like,
lost.
but-
There we go.
They're already not canon, so they could tell the Fall of Reach in a different way that's more interesting for mainstream TV audiences.
True. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, they freed themselves up essentially to do things a little bit differently for the TV audience.
Are you trying to insinuate that video games don't always make the best movie stories?
Oh. You don't say.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, that is all right. Good point. You win. Any other thoughts about the actual TV show? Anybody not pipe in there that wanted to? All right. So what about like this? Any thoughts on the audio logs or anything like that in the game?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you guys, like, am I the only one? I guess I should get your guys' thoughts first. Like, so
Just spit it out.
Yeah.
do you think that anything that we hear about like the primordial or medicant bias is strictly going to be through these audio logs? Like it's only going to be like a side feature or something that you discover on your own versus something that's integrated in the main story?
Well, here's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping, so like everybody here heard The Hunt for Truth, right?
No.
Oh, you did.
I know of it, but
Okay. So like I really enjoyed those, and I don't know I won't take a whole show on those, but I enjoyed like the production values they had in there. What I'm
Didn't it
hoping
win an award?
did it?
I think it won an award.
some kind of marketing award or something.
Yeah, if it did, good. It was really good.
Yeah. So yeah, the story was way better than Halo 5's. So
It
But,
accidentally told a way more interesting story.
I
Yeah.
actually think that added on to Halo 5's disappointment when it came to the story.
Yeah.
yeah, no, it did because it really set us up for something that sounded. I was super hyped after the advertising. Anyways, I'm going off on chasing another squirrel here, but yeah, the bottom line is those were really, really high quality, and they really got you. Gave you a different perspective that you couldn't get in the game. They were interesting. They brought in their own characters. So what I'm hoping is when they talk about these audio logs, that's really the first thing I thought of. I hope they have not just these like boring like I don't know, like Metal Gear kind of audio logs, where I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, I hope they actually have something that's compelling like that, and they have that same sort of production value, and that maybe somewhere down the road, maybe it's in a DLC, or you find something you can find clues that tie it in throughout the world and all that. So that's kind of where
Have you ever played BioShock?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yep. One of the best games.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
The way the audio logs like told their own narratives, and like you'd find audio logs later on in that game that are a continuation of a previous audio log. Like you're following the stories of these people who have left these recordings.
Yeah.
And then add some additional, I guess, context or character, because you find like an audio log next to a corpse, and you find out, something like that. Yeah, that's kind of what I expected. Did they reference BioShock in the 343 Q&A, or was I just thinking that? But that's kind of what I had in mind. That's why I was kind of more. But to me, while I love that's also kind of expected or safe, if that makes because I think the lore behind Installation 7, not only does it excite a lot of Halo fans, but there's a lot of potential there. So that I'm wondering how that is addressed, or if that's something that they're going to just more so kind of keep under their belt for either expansions or sequels within this 10-year plan of theirs, however they want to handle, I guess, a game-sized expansion or what have you, an update.
Well, I think the impression they've given us so far is the story is going to be very simple. It's going to be like, we're going to get this dude home or something like that. They want to keep it personal, very simple, like the main storyline that the cutscenes play out for. But they did mention in the previous interviews that there's a lot more depth to the world that you could explore and find if you wanted all that. So I'm okay with that, because I think it adds to a sense of the mystery if they're rebooting that whole Halo CE, that whole kind of, the mystery.
Less is more.
Yeah. See, you start asking questions and stuff, and then you plant little things. You can find information for that, but it's not going to be, rolled out in 20-minute cutscenes or weird cuts. Like I know a lot of people like the Halo 4 story. I didn't because it was just, I don't know. It just like when a game's trying to talk to me and over explain everything to me, it kind of takes me out of it a little bit. So it just doesn't feel that natural. So just kind of allowing you to kind of search for the depth, but just keeping it, keeping the main storyline very simple. Sounds good to me, but that's my thoughts on it. Anybody else?
Just real quick with the audio thing, you're right. Their wording is definitely the best part. The fact that they said cool radio drama kind of elevates my expectations, because Halo 5 had audio logs, right? Yeah, it did. Though I'm pretty sure
so did Halo 4.
Yeah, they were forgettable.
Exactly. That's the thing. I mean, Halo 5 in itself, I kind of didn't
have audio logs.
What now?
Halo 4 had terminals, right?
Oh,
yeah, terminals. Yeah.
I mean, aren't audio logs
they were like these crazy things you had to sit down and watch?
Yes.
No.
Took you out of the experience.
No,
Halo channel.
No, like the Halo 4, after you crash on the planet, or the what do you call it? The Promethean planet, whatever the hell it was called. There was an audio log that you found on one of the crashed ships that you can activate.
I'd say that's an environmental discovery more than a mechanic.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't
one.
There weren't many of them. That might have actually been the only one, now that I think about it.
No.
Yeah.
There were a decent amount.
In 4, there were several.
Halo 4 had a lot of stuff you could interact with, and the characters would comment on it. Like you could find a Forerunner symbol, and Cortana would be like, "This is what this is, Chief." Or you could find that little radio broadcast and like, I wonder what that's foreshadowing.
One thing, speaking about Halo 4, the one thing did we ever see any clips or cuts in the Master Chief doesn't speak in Infinite yet while you're playing him? Does he? We haven't seen that yet.
Not yet.
I'm hoping it stays that way. I mean, that's one of the things that in Halo, especially Halo 4, he was very talkative while
Yeah, he was a chatterbox in Halo
Yeah.
4.
And it didn't really take me out of the game, but I mean, especially with them having this whole marketing angle that you step within the suit and stuff like that, it makes sense to not have you talk my ear off while I'm playing as you. And it just, I mean, the whole story delivery, well, especially Halo 5 was, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we should probably pivot or move to the next thing, because I know we are, like usual, we're
We just said an hour and a half. Yeah.
So
I blame Jesse.
Yeah, we're not going to get an hour and a half. Real quick though, this doesn't have to be a very long topic. Maybe just see if anybody has any quick take on it. This week there was the Bethesda roundtable, and it was obviously focused on Bethesda Studios. But one of the interesting things that did come up, Phil Spencer, he lit up when they were talking about id Tech, and he said there's no studio that sweats every pixel and frame as it does, and when he thinks about them working with Coalition and 343, the first person and the third person shooter space, he says there's amazing capability, and he thinks about the id Tech and what it could mean inside of Xbox. And when he was thinking about when he was speaking towards the collaboration, he was thinking about taking that to the next level and what they can do within the organization. Does anybody have did anything kind of jump to anybody here's mind when they heard that? I know that there was rumors, and in fact, I think a developer said to me that it was not just a rumor. They did try to use Unreal and backed off of that previously or during the development process. I'm going to start off with you, Daniel, because I think I haven't given you a chance to say too much, and you're in the tech, you understand the tech area. Was there any kind of thoughts when you heard about collaboration and technology and anything that we can glean from it, or at this point is it just too vague to really to have too strong of an opinion on?
Yeah, I mean, a couple points on that. I mean, it is a little bit vague in terms of how id Tech would be utilized. But really, I mean, the thing is, developers often use different engines, different APIs, but they can still share efficiency boon, advice on, hey, here's how we actually were able to shrink the runtime on this element. Here's how we were able to amplify the resolution on this area without dropping the frame rate. So I think more than anything, it makes me more hopeful because, before, and you and I and Mike talked about this the other night, the old Xbox, they did not collaborate between studios, and that included, the early days of 343's existence. And so, seeing Undead Labs get a lot of tips from Rare and some of the other studios like Coalition that have used Unreal Engine, and seeing the same thing with there's a game I was just thinking about where they did the same thing. Outer Worlds, Obsidian got a lot of help from Microsoft's internal tech team, as well as tips from Coalition on utilization of Unreal. What excites me about id Tech is that we've talked about how that seems like a shoe-in for GameStack, right? And I just wonder. Obviously, Slipspace isn't going anywhere; it's a huge investment, but I think there's just a lot of elements for. Here's how we were able to minimize load on this aspect. I think there's going to be a lot more of that between the teams, and id is one of the most technically proficient teams out there.
Yeah, no, really good points. Yeah. Mike, you were involved in the discussion. You want to elaborate on that?
I mean, it's kind of along those lines. Slipspace isn't going anywhere, but there's what I got from that is exactly like Daniel said, is like when you have collaboration like between different studios. I mean, I can definitely see a scenario where they discuss how they're employing some kind of technique within the Slipspace engine and just getting feedback in that respect. You don't have to share engines to share techniques. I mean, that's why we have GDC every year. And to have those different sets of eyes or experiences, just, I mean, and that goes all across the board. And having id tech, or just the id team in general, having those engineers being added to the fold. Now you have, the talented people at the coalition. You have people at Rare who I don't think get nearly enough technical recognition. But then you also have the engineers from 343, the engineers from id tech. You get all these minds together where they can just throw things at each other or give each other feedback. That's where I see the biggest benefit. I mean, I don't see them ever. It wouldn't be possible, I imagine, not even to incorporate parts of id tech in Slipspace. Like, Slipspace is its own beast.
Right.
You don't hatch parts of another engine.
No,
it's not like, it's not like a puzzle piece where you can just add it on there. But yeah, like Daniel kind of touched on, just that feedback, that collaboration in terms of different ideas and different talents and experiences,
different methodologies.
Yeah, I mean, they can all benefit each other. I mean, I'm sure there are things at id tech that they can learn from 343, and and vice versa. So that's the exciting part that I got from that. The direct, like, id tech's direct contribution within the division. Again, like Daniel said, I see it being a critical part of game stack.
Mhm.
And I mean, maybe we can see some teams within Xbox switching to it, but it all depends on how invested they are. The fork that Coalition has for Unreal Engine, it is likely different than what the Obsidian had with the Outer Worlds, because they're not going to be able to share that kind of technology until they're acquired. Stuff like that. I mean, that was touched on when they acquired State of Decay, Undead Labs. Like, even though it was a first party game, you still can't have that level of close collaboration as if they're within the organization. There's still some walls or limitations there.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I brought it up, because I've heard other podcasters and stuff, like, who are not maybe as invested in Halo, kind of talk about id tech, and maybe for whatever reason Microsoft is going to get them to help or work on Halo, and I agree with you guys. I think there's some benefits to collaboration, and there's probably some efficiencies you can get across multiple different engines, but at the end of the day, you're not going to switch it from whatever 343 is using. They're using it because it feels like Halo, and they're not going to change from that. So I don't think that's what that meant. I am excited to see what they might do in the AI space, though, together, and things like that. So that might be kind of fun to see down the road. And I don't know how, obviously physics kind of work. You can patch that into different engines, right? So it'd be interesting to maybe see how they update the physics over time, because this is a sandbox game, and so seeing the technology advance could only give that more options. Taras, did you have any kind of thoughts on that, or is that not really something? Or just about, like, technology, Microsoft, like, this thing over time? Is it something that you've ever even put any thought into? Like,
I'm not too sure. Like, obviously they are using the Halo engine, and it's a little bit disappointing that it kind of looks like the Halo 5 engine. At least it renders things kind of like Halo 5 does. Like, they haven't upgraded to ray tracing. They said that's going to be coming post-launch, so the game wasn't built with ray tracing in mind. They don't seem to be using, like, photogrammetry or anything. I mean, the foliage, it looks like they've improved, but it still has, like, that plasticky Halo 5 look. Halo 5 kind of struggled with foliage a little bit. I don't know.
Infinite does use photogrammetry, though.
Photogrammetry?
Yeah, photogrammetry thing. Yeah, from what I understand.
I could never say that right either.
I don't think they've ever said that it uses photogrammetry.
I could have sworn during the initial reveal
I think they said
When it came
their
to the
engine
caves.
can support it, but I don't think they ever said that their next project would be using it. Like
Maybe that.
technically, any engine can support
Yeah.
photogrammetry.
I mean,
Truman just
that's
mentioned
kind of
said that it's going to be using it sometime next year. I don't know.
and the whole ray tracing thing. That
the ray tracing.
I'd assumed, and it was never confirmed. Like because the initial release date with them, they said that it was going to be a post-launch update. I don't know if it's right for me to do this, but I'm expecting it to be there at launch now because of the additional time.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
mean,
If it's not, something's up.
It's in Halo
Well-
Infinite. It's listed. There's Forza Horizon, or whatever the next Forza game is. Halo Infinite and Hellblade 2 all utilize photogrammetry.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. Bethesda Studios utilize. It seems like every studio is utilizing it, except we haven't seen much from 343. But I guess we'll have to wait and see how that's implemented. Jesse, did you have any thoughts? I think you're the only one that didn't pipe in on that one.
It seems more like a collaboration more than any type of engine changing. They just rebuilt.
And Microsoft Game Studios do that a lot.
Yeah. Well, now they do. Yeah.
and all those people that made comments about give Halo to id Tech, or I'm sorry, just id, or give id Tech to 343. I don't think these people realize that would be a completely different Halo, and not. I mean, it wouldn't please Halo fans.
It would
No,
feel different under the hood.
You know who those people are? They're just people that just hate 343 at this point and just want to see anything. So I think that's just their way of.
It's just so self-defeating because there's a lot more to an engine than what you see.
Yes,
and that's especially true when it comes to the Halo engine. There's a reason why 343 has built off of the Halo engine instead of scrapping it entirely. And even when they say, Slip Space is a quote unquote new engine, it's really not. It's an evolution. And that pretty much goes for any time you hear a developer say, this is our new next gen engine. No, I mean, you might rewrite large chunks of the renderer and stuff like that, but at its core, it's an evolution of the previous engine.
Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, no, I think we kind of are all in agreement on that. And, at the end of the day, the modularity is a huge part of the Halo engine and some of the versatility when it comes to the sandbox. So obviously there's more to it than just, the pretty textures. That seems to be what everybody focuses on. But all right, so I want to move us forward to just some of the community questions. We got some community questions for Taras, aka Mr. Late Night Gaming. And I guess I should have reminded everybody as we were kind of going through the show, that's because they all know you by Late Night Gaming, probably, right? But I'll go ahead and ask a few questions, and then if anybody else on the team wants to kind of join in after I ask these, but they're all directed to you, Mr. Late Night Gaming. So quick question from Mr. Big Z. He says, what is the main thing that excites you about Halo Infinite? And conversely, what is the main thing that makes you concerned? And he says, great to have you on the podcast.
As far as things that excite me, I think it's the tone. I mean, like the art style and everything, it's fantastic seeing that universe look like that again.
Mm-hmm.
But tonally, it looks adventurous again.
Yeah.
And that's what's exciting. It's not like Chief is sad, Chief is being hunted, Chief is a traitor, Chief is dead. Fuck you, fuck Master Chief, fuck I'm just excited that like the game wants to be an adventure and it wants the player to go on an adventure.
Yes. Yep. That's a really good point, honestly, because they were kind of going down that road of
like why do you guys hate Master Chief so much?
Like trying to be so dramatic, and I just didn't like. It doesn't.
Well, they were pretty open that they wanted Locke to be the replacement. No, I mean that scene that I thought that was like an open intent with Halo 5, and then after the blowback of how no one was a fan of Locke, at least compared to Chief, they completely backtracked on that.
Did we all forget about the entire marketing scheme from Halo 3 where they're basically like Halo or Master Chief is dying at the end of Halo 3. Here's all these memorials.
But then what does he do at the end of that memorial thing? He lifts up and look, he's still alive.
Oh,
And
the believer.
Yeah,
It's hopeful.
you know, and we need that like these days.
yeah,
I don't need any more
sucks.
sad dad. I don't need a sad dad game like this end of this year. We've been locked in our freaking basements for like a year now, right? Like or whatever, locked somewhere working and just it's been like just like the world has just been so like we've been just faced with so much like anxiety and depression. It's like I'm ready for Halo just to be a comic booky like exciting adventure again. I know it sounds really, you know, maybe immature or whatever. I don't need it to be like just a drama. So,
No,
you know, go ahead.
I mean, they even touched on what you said earlier in the show about the how straight, I don't know, how simple, not for lack of better terms, the story is. I mean, that's one of the things. You mix that simplicity or minimalism to the story where they basically just give you enough beats to carry the narrative along, and then you mix in how for the first time in God knows how long there's like a sense of mystery with Halo. It so far so good on that whole, but what about the concern part? That's
Everyone wants to know your concerns.
I don't know. I haven't seen a whole lot that concerns me so far. And it's like whatever concerns I do have are so trivial and just subjective. You know, where it's like it's not anything that I do think will kill the game. Like,
all right.
I'm a little bit concerned about that grappling hook. It's like, okay, some people are going to like the grappling hook, though. You know, it's like I don't dread anything yet.
Well, that's actually pretty positive, especially considering, you know, that you know, that usually you are exposed to all the dread that comes in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, it's just like even with the playable elites, it's like, but like hopefully they'll come post launch. Like so far, I'm not dreading anything.
Okay. All right, let's go around the table then, real quick. Jesse, what is the thing that you feel best about, and what are you dreading?
Pretty much the feel best about is they've been given more time than they've ever really had before. The beginning of it was, you know, making the engine and doing pre-production, but now actual production, getting the extra year, you know, it sucked. I don't think any of us wanted it, and that colored our predictions of how long the delay might be. But in the end, it's just going to be the 20-year anniversary. We can really polish everything in a way that Microsoft games generally don't get to, which Sony games do, even though they get to do it because they delay constantly. So have that full year delay, really polish things up, bring in a few things that you think of later that you might have cut for a lack of time. And as far as dreading goes, I don't dread anything because it's a friggin' video game.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good way to look at it. All right, so how about you, man?
Give me 1 second. Let me read the question again, just so I know how it's worded. Excites you, main thing, right? It's gonna be the music / sound. And I know that's a weird answer because it's not really the gameplay, but it's more so about how it's gonna merge with the gameplay. One of my
that goes with the tone too, right?
Say it again.
Yeah, that goes with the tone too. Right?
Yeah, exactly. One of my favorite memories of Halo in general is how there's always a specific soundtrack associated with a specific level or location, you know. And I have a feeling, or at least I hope, Infinite's going to bring some of that back, especially with Gareth Coker and a couple other really talented people on board.
Yeah.
Especially their tracks that they've already released. They all sound great, to me, at least.
Yeah, Halo used to have multiple people. You had not just Marty O'Donnell, but also Salvatore, and then Paul C. something? What was his name? Fuck. Everyone forgets his name.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah, but like everyone, you know, usually touts Marty O'Donnell.
Yeah.
Like it was a combination of a lot of people. And this is going to be the first soundtrack in quite a while to have another kind of like combination of artists.
Oh, you know, that's an interesting.
Paul Johnson.
I didn't
Halo
even
4
know.
had combo of artists. It's Neil Davidge and,
Yeah, you had Neil Davidge and Kazuma, and then Halo 5 was mostly just Kazuma.
That's why,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I like the opening sound in Halo, and after that, it was kind of just blended together. Or Halo 5.
And Halo.
Yeah.
Okay, Halo 5.
Yeah, no. Marty O'Donnell. No, the classic Halos are
All
still
right,
my
okay.
favorite music. Sorry, no,
and
it's not
sorry.
Halo 5.
In terms of what I dread, it actually was already mentioned in the Ask Me for 3. And also, by the way, I'm already taking an early win here. Statistically, the numbers might not pan out, but the biomes being mostly limited to the Pacific Northwest.
I knew you'd say that.
100%. This is what I figured. This is what I had in my mind, that we're not getting the massive desert environments or the snowy mountains or whatnot. You know, it's going to be mostly this and around surrounding stuff.
You think that's a win?
Well, it's a win for me because that's what I predicted.
I still don't think you're going to be right, though, Ursula. They specifically talked about the sub biome.
That's true. That's why I'm saying I'm keeping an eye on the numbers.
How much are we betting on this one?
Well, no, we said 5, right? I think was what 5 different biomes or something.
I said multiples. No, you said like less than 2 or something.
I thought they were talking about money. I was like, oh wow, you guys got money on that.
Oh no, I'll bet money on that one.
All right, how about let's see. Let's go to Mr. Daniel. What's your thoughts on the what are you most excited about and worried
Concerned about? Yeah.
Zeta Halo. I mean, it's going to be hopefully if they bring in any elements to the book, I mean, it's going to be a wild ride. I'm not really concerned about anything. This is, I feel like a weird pariah right now because I feel like I'm the only one that and Jesse too, that isn't, a super nostalgic Bungie fanatic right now. But they've made mistakes, but they've also made a lot of improvements over, objective flaws in some of Bungie's design. So I think that as long as they learn from some of the major mistakes of 5 and they do thread a middle line, I think I'll be happy.
Good take. All right, Mike, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I kind of touched on it earlier, just the getting some of those feels from CE is what I'm most excited, because that's what it seems like the most potential of any of the 343 Halo games. And then I don't really have any concerns. I mean, everything seems great so far. Like some of my early concerns, like the weapon feedback or the sound feedback, that's one thing that I think that 343 did pretty poorly in past Halo games, where with the Bungie Halo games, you knew what weapon someone had in the next room before you even saw them, if you just heard it. And whereas some of the Promethean weapons kind of blended together, especially with it all being yellow. But everything that I've seen with Infinite, like, weapons are distinct. The sounds are recognizable. I mean, there's some things where, I wish there was the classic shotgun, but I mean, I'm not going to lose sleep over small stuff like that. I don't really have too much in the way of concerns. I just want it.
All right. Well, and I guess I go last here. And for me, I will say what I'm most excited about is the sandbox, the return to that focus on the sandbox, because I do feel like that's an area that 343 really hasn't focused a lot on. And like it just, even with their enemy design and everything, wasn't really conducive to like a fun, I guess, like we were saying before, puzzle when it comes to the gameplay. And it looks like every single update they've had so far, they've always talked, it was one of the first things they focused on was the sandbox. And it seems like every time they go through another one of these updates, there's some tidbits they give for that game balancing, the overall sandbox, and just that dynamic gameplay. So I'm excited about that, especially over time, and knowing that they can diversify, throw things into it. I am actually happy that it's a platform and not just a, game that's coming out every 3 or 5 years. And this way they can just take more risks on a yearly basis. And, hopefully we'll kind of see this. Hopefully we'll see some really, emergent experiences come out of that in the single player part of it. For concerns, I feel like I'm largely in the same boat that a lot of you are in, because I don't think they've given us enough to be concerned about yet. I mean, when they released it, I wasn't happy with the graphics, but as I said before, that's never been I'm cool with the art style. I like the classic art style, and so that part of it doesn't is not a negative for me. I guess if I were to be honest, it would be that just the community, just finding a way to balance everybody, because that is one of the really cool things about Halo back in its prime, was just how well it could bring everybody together. And it was just that that event. And it would be neat to get to that point where it could be this big thing that continues afterwards. And I think that's going to be tougher than the thread the needle, even if I'm happy with it, seeing them somehow keep the fans of the modern version and fans of the classic somehow both, keep them both here. And I think there's some ways to do that, because it sounds versatile enough that that they should be able to create different modes and different ways to appeal to different people. But we'll have to wait and see, because they haven't really unveiled the multiplayer, and so that is something that I'm eager to see.
You
All
and
right.
about a billion other people. Well, maybe
Yeah.
not a billion.
Not a billion. Microsoft hopes it's a
3 billion, right? That's what they say.
Yeah, 3 billion people is what they want it to be. So you know what? You want to go ahead? Who wants to ask the rest of the questions here? You want to go ahead and ask?
I think Daniel's doing it.
Okay, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, so the next one is from Opachi. I have some questions for, he put some in quotes for those of us who were around for last week. I have some questions for late night gaming. The first one is, what is one thing you liked about Halo 5?
That's a good question.
Crickets.
Yeah, I guess that answers that.
I'm not going to say the credits because that's mean. No. I like the custom games browser in the Forge a lot.
Okay.
Like a lot.
Did you?
Very cool.
Travis, did you play did you play any of the multiplayer, or did that just not stick with you at all?
I played a lot of the multiplayer and I hate it.
Really? Okay.
I wish I could take those hours back. Because I played most of it because the promise of future content was always there. Like, in a couple months, they'll bring back Infection. Maybe then I'll like this. And it never had that update where I was like, now I like it. It was just like, oh, so now that all the content's here, it still feels like Halo 5 and I'm not having fun.
No. Well, hopefully they do find that balance for you in this one.
Well,
All
and
right.
I also feel like it's okay if the new one is just more Halo 5, like enhanced mobility, Call of Duty craziness. Like, some people do like that. It's okay. The Master Chief Collection, I guess I'll just play more of that.
Yeah. Yep, that's still there too. All right,
I
keep going.
hope
Daniel.
the campaign's good.
The next question is basically, what are you hoping for from the story of Halo Infinite?
I hope it's a reset. Like, there's a lot of people that are saying, like, they're talking about it like it's the final chapter of the Reclaimer saga. It's like, no, guys, they've been saying over and over again, this is a fresh start.
Yeah.
Like, I'm hoping that it's not like, that it isn't chapter 6, the rise of Skywalker, Master Chief. Like, I don't want this to be a conclusion. I want this to be the start of something new. Like, obviously, I hope that it does wrap up some stuff from Halo 5 and quickly get that out of the way so we can move on to more interesting things. But yeah, I'm hoping it's a fresh start. I hope it's an interesting direction that the story will be going in, and I hope that it's interesting enough to invite new fans, because Halo is almost legally old enough to drink in the United States. Halo's getting old, and when franchises get old, they start to become impenetrable to new fans. Like Star Trek, it kind of only lives off of existing Star Trek fans now. Like, the show is so old. Same with Star Wars. Star Wars is now starting to run into that problem where it's having issues onboarding new fans because of its age. It's like, I'd like Halo to really ground itself and set up something fresh and new that new people might be interested in.
Well, The Mandalorian exists.
The Mandalorian's awesome.
That's actually a really good take. I actually agree with that a lot for in terms of the story aspect, because it's almost one of those things. When I got done with Halo 5, it's like, can we just do one of those things they used to do in the sitcoms when they had to reboot a show and they just said, hey, this was all a dream?
I mean, let's not do the "it's all a dream" because that would also suck.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I was like, how can we like?
But stuff like the Banished, that does interest me, because it's like, oh, I was expecting more Covenant. I thought we'd never stop fighting the Covenant. So the fact that they're already like, no, the Covenant are done, guys. We got to deal with this problem. The brutes have gone crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing that's cool about the Banished is that it is still, I mean, it's effectively the Covenant. I mean, because you have the Jackals.
You're having your cake and you're eating it too. You've got that fun combat loop, but the context is different.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The Prometheans were never a rightful like successor to the enemy, to the Covenant. It just never felt nearly as satisfying.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question is, if you have the option to choose your favorite biome in Halo Infinite, what would this be and why?
Snow.
Oh.
Probably because so something that's cool about Combat Evolved Anniversary on the Xbox 360, and I'm really bummed it's not on the MCC, is you can edit the contrast and the brightness independently of each other. So something I like to do on Combat Evolved Anniversary was I'd go to not Assault on the Control Room, that level's too bright. The other one, to Betrayals. And I'd turn up the contrast and lower the brightness so it felt dark. Like all I could see was what my flashlight illuminated. And it's just like the little specks of snow catching the light off of the flashlight and just like wandering around the snow.
Huh.
That sounds
like,
pretty
I want to get in a scorpion or a warthog, and I want its headlights to, beam out into the darkness as the snow falls.
I mean, if we're talking about snow, they're gonna have, what's the thing called when you walk and it's like your footprints are there? I know there's a term for it.
Deformation.
Say it again.
Deformation.
Deformation. Well, we all know what's gonna be the first picture uploaded with that.
So they said there's no snowstorms at launch. Does that mean no snow biomes then?
Not necessarily.
Probably.
I'd be surprised if they had snow at launch.
Well, see, that should be your biggest concern now.
I'd be pleasantly surprised if they had it. I would love for them to have it, but
maybe like a transition biome, like where you'll see some snow but not enough to fully.
You have to have a snow level if you're having outdoor level.
As far as the weather and the biomes went, they were talking about dynamic weather.
Yeah,
right.
That's true. Yeah.
Start, not having been in an area where there was a storm and there's snow on the ground.
Okay.
Hence the not necessarily comment.
Okay.
Oh yeah, fair point.
All right. Cool.
And the last question is, what is your opinion on the grappling hook?
I think it's a bit boring. But I get why it's there. Market research probably said that for some reason grappling hooks are really popular. We got to have one in our game. I don't know. I'm sure people will have fun with it. I don't have an opinion. It's fine. It's whatever.
I'll have to wait and see. Yeah.
It could be completely fine. No, okay. The grappling hook can be super cool if we're talking about custom games, because I'm already thinking of do you know how fucking cool it would be to have an infection game type where all the zombies were armed with grappling hooks and energy swords and the humans had to drive away in a warthog?
Yeah, you can do some crazy stuff.
You could have Spider-Man chases the bank robbers type game modes.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like when they're talking about all these sandboxy things, and supposedly Forge is going to be a lot more advanced. We haven't got to see anything on that either. And you would expect it, right? Like they've had a lot of years since Halo 5, which was pretty good in Forge. You would think there's just a lot of tools for people creative people to create some really fun modes. I mean, maybe almost like an infinite, no pun intended, amount of things that you could continue to create and do with all these, with these tools. So I'm thinking maybe if they give us an opportunity to even forge some single player stuff, we could recreate Bionic Commando in 3D.
There's stuff like that. It's cool that, and then also it's just like not even just the grappling hook. The fact that Halo 5's idea of innovating was we gave you a bunch of new gameplay things and that's it. It's like, well, now you've locked yourself creatively. That's it. This is the game going forward. There's no room to grow. Halo Infinite's idea of innovation is an external tool that you can find.
Yes.
So that means that they could add new external tools in the future.
Yes.
So we could see new equipments added and stuff. Theoretically, they could probably bring back the Reach jetpack as an equipment for people to goof off with in custom games.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
the innovation is now external, which means there's room for infinite growth.
Everybody in the show's got to use that pun from now. get their time. No, that's a really good point. Yeah, to like what you're saying is when it's part of you, then you have to balance that, and when you got to balance it, then there's limitations. If it's external, you can really F around with it. And
they can add new external things. Like new DLC in Halo 5 was never going to add a new Spartan ability.
Yep.
Right. But we could see new equipment.
Yeah.
We could see a lot of new stuff, new races even, like it's...
Yeah.
Instead of elites, you get a whole you play as the banished.
Well, I thought about whether or not they would, instead of elites, you're a brute.
No, that's as great. I thought of it too, but
I'm
sorry,
man.
Huh?
Yeah, I took that off. I chased another scroll. Sorry about that. Okay, cool. I started thinking about all these possibilities about adding add-ons. So those are some really good answers.
Sorry, really quick. Speaking of the grappling hook, one thing they mentioned was that in multiplayer you can only hold one equipment. Does that mean in campaign we can hold more than one at a time, switch them around?
No, I think they said only one at a time, right?
I thought in multiplayer equipment were more consumable, so it was more closer to what we saw in, like, say, Halo 3. So I suspect the grappling hook, and because they already confirmed that the grappling hook is going to work differently from campaign to multiplayer. Oh, yeah. I'm suspecting that the multiplayer is going to have limited uses where you can use it maybe like 3 or 5 times or something, and then it.
Here, I'll read the exact quote. It says, you can hold one piece of equipment in multiplayer, and it is currently a use it and it is gone sort in multiplayer. They do, however, want to implement tools so that you can change this in custom games to allow multiple pieces of equipment to be used at once. So just like, Taras was saying that we could probably do some crazy things with our own custom games, but it sounds like the core of it's just going to be a consumable you pick up just like you would a power weapon or something else.
Am I the only one that thinks that a one and done grappling hook is a dumb idea?
I think it's a tactical idea. You have to pick and choose when you want to use it.
Yeah.
You fly around the map, dude. That thing's a piece of tactical equipment.
Yeah.
He didn't say one and done either. It could be one of those things that you just use up. Just
could be a couple of charges.
Yeah, and I think that makes more sense for a grappling hook. Like, to me, a grappling hook is different than a shield. Like a shield as a one and done thing makes more sense, but maybe I'm just leaning on nostalgia.
No, and they're not gonna. I'm not expecting the grappling hook to be one use. Game developers are not going to want to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't sound right. All right, cool. Now we're already well over, so we should wrap up the show. And I guess before we do wrap up, just want to give you a chance, Taras, aka Mr. Late Night Gamer, to tell people where they can find you, and if there's anything else you kind of want to add on at the end here.
You can find me on Twitter. I mean, just you'll find me.
Late Night Gaming. They already found you. It's fine.
Yeah,
they know where you're at.
You'll find me on YouTube. I'm very hard to miss.
Well, what we do want to thank you for coming. It was awesome having you here, and
this was fantastic.
it was just awesome getting your opinions. Like I said, we have a diverse panel here. You bring a lot of really in depth. You've been thinking about this game.
Yeah, a lot of in-depth information, stuff I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, you bring a lot. You've been doing this for 6 years, and interacting with the community, and you have a lot of obviously a lot of knowledge. You've been really studious on this, and I do find that you make it very interesting. So when you talk about that stuff, so again, thanks for being here with us. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, we definitely look forward to hearing what your thoughts are once this game actually comes out. So with that, I guess we will. I'll just turn it over to you, Sol, to sign us off.
Yeah, though, really quick, does anyone have any final points you want to talk about at all?
I'm good.
Okay.
I've liked Halo for the last few years, ever since the Master Chief Collection came out.
Oh man.
What was gonna say? Then yeah, okay. You know the spill. For anyone who's listening, because of late night gaming, if you haven't seen our channel before, we're an Xbox focused channel. We generally focus on more of the positive aspect of the brand and the positive news that is coming out. If you would like the podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, of course. For the usual podcast listeners, this week it should be, I think, either Wednesday or Thursday, maybe a little later. We'll release the first episode of our book club podcast, focusing more on the Halo lore and all the intricate details there, so please keep an eye out for that. Other than that, if you have any feedback or questions, please let us know. And thank you for watching. Sorry. I'm like, wait, I'm missing something here. I should really write this down.
The Patreon? Did you?
And of course, yes, if you really enjoy our content, we have a Patreon as well, which I feel like I might talk to John about getting the names of the
tier 3
of the tier 3s, because doesn't take long, and it'd be nice to say their names here as well. But yeah, if you really enjoy our content, we also have a Patreon you can check out, and if you want to have a nice, good discussion that's not bogged down by
drama
and fan bases
Biases.
And if you like Killzone.
Basically, yes. There
I
we
would
go.
love to talk to them about Killzone.
If you'd love to talk more about Killzone in your Halo podcast, you know where to come.
But we have our own forums, Xbox Era forums. They're growing pretty decently.
All right, thanks, Sol. All right, guys.
Bye, everyone.
All right, thank you for coming on late night. I just called him late night. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
All right, bye.
All right, see you guys.